What are the country's top CEOs doing to build extraordinary teams and cultures who thrive even during a pandemic? You're about to take a deep dive into the minds of wildly successful C-suite leaders who are evolving the way that we work in the 21st century. Welcome to this special edition of How to Be Mesmerizing. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and we have another superstar with us today in our special series. Eboni Adams Monk is with us. Eboni, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's great to be here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you with us. So let me share with our audience who you are. So Eboni is an energetic, results-driven, transformational business leader with over 20 years of progressive leadership experience. She earned her MBA from the University of Chicago, and she started her career as a chemical engineer. And she works with W.R. Grace & Company for the last 25 years. They're a 4,000 person leading global supplier of catalysts and specialty materials that help oil companies produce cleaner products. She's been promoted to customer service manager and then promoted again, because she's awesome, to the vice president of marketing, which that's what she is doing today. So Eboni's personal leadership philosophy is, I love people, I love culture, I love leading teams, which is why I wanted her on the show. And she also wrote a wonderful book called Leading Wise, Inspirational Reflections for Corporate Leaders. So Eboni, I'm super excited that you're here.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks. Glad to be here. Tim,
yes.
Can I jump in for a second?
Of course. Yeah.
So you mentioned my MBA's from University of Chicago?
Yes.
It's Georgia State.
Oh, it's Georgia State.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. We got to fix that.
Georgia State University I did go to University of Chicago for a year and a half and then transferred when Grace transferred me to Atlanta. So my MBA is from Georgia State University.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to do this one more time then.
Okay.
Just because I don't want to say the wrong school. I had that. I don't know where I even got that from. So, okay. So MBA from Georgia State.
Yeah. My undergrad is from University of Illinois in Chicago.
Okay.
That might be where part of it's coming from.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to do that one more time then.
Okay. Okay.
There's a first for everything. Now I've had to redo the intro once, not twice. It's a new day. It's so much easier than editing because I don't like to edit. I like to keep it raw and authentic, and
right. Exactly.
How it is.
Okay.
So except for this time. I like to keep it authentic, except for this time.
All righty.
Okay. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and you're in for a special treat today. My friend Eboni Adams Monk is with us. Eboni, I'm sorry. I can't stop laughing. All right. One more time. I got to get my act together. Here we go. All right. 3, 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and we have another amazing leader with us today. Eboni Adams Monk is with us. Eboni, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's great to be here.
Yes, so Eboni is amazing, and let me tell you a little bit about her and why I wanted her to be a part of our special series today, because she is a really mesmerizing leader. So she is results-driven, transformational. She's got 20 years of progressive leadership experience. She earned her MBA from Georgia State, and she's been working with W.R. Grace & Company for the last 25 years. They're a 4,000 person leading global supplier of catalysts and specialty materials that help oil companies produce cleaner products. She started out as a chemical engineer and then eventually was promoted to customer service manager, and then was promoted again to vice president of marketing, which is what she's doing today. Eboni's personal leadership philosophy is, I love people, I love culture, and I love leading teams, which is why I wanted her on the show. And she's also the author of a wonderful book called Leading Wise, Inspirational Reflections for Corporate Leaders. So Eboni, I'm just super excited to have this conversation with you today.
I am as well. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So Eboni, let's go back a couple of decades. Let's go back 20 years ago. You're a single mom. You're an African-American woman living on the south side of Chicago, and you decide to become an chemical engineer. And now you're VP of marketing for this huge corporation. How did you break through so many glass ceilings?
That's a really great question. It was not necessarily my intent to break through anything necessarily.
No?
My family taught me to do well in life.
Yes.
Go to school, believed in the power of education. My mother was a teacher for many years, a counselor and a principal of a K-8 elementary school on the south side of Chicago.
Nice.
So doing well and excellence is something that has always been a part of me.
Yes.
It was not negotiable. So I just went out and I did what I needed to do. I went to school. I figured out in high school that I could do well in math and science, and actually didn't know a whole lot about engineering. But what I did know was that not a lot of African Americans were going to school for engineering at the time. And engineers seem to have exciting careers and make money. So I was mainly supported by my family, who really encouraged me to explore something new. And once I got into the job world, I realized that I could actually contribute, that I had ideas. And in the organizations that I was a part of, my ideas were valued. And as a result, I continued to demonstrate my value. And here I sit today. A big part of that, I just really want to say, though, is my support system, my family who initially lit that spark, and a lot of mentors along the way who validated for me that my ideas really were valuable, and that the language and how I was speaking was just like any other successful leader that they had mentored.
Yes.
And so all of that really feeds into this story of really how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, having a strong foundation, having people who believe in you is essential. Sometimes people don't have that, but there's a second chance to have that experience. So one of the things that you said is that you were in a workspace, there was a culture where you were valued and you were appreciated, and you had mentors and people who saw your potential and embraced that. And that's part of what having an amazing culture is all about. It's about allowing people to rise to their fullest potential through work. I mean, that's one of my main missions is how do we feel happy and fulfilled at work? Someone told me the other day, we spend like 90,000 hours of our life working. Shouldn't it feel fulfilling as opposed to just waiting for the weekend?
That is absolutely right. And culture is really one of my passions. It's really the reason why I wrote my book, was because I recognized that as leaders, we had the ability to do more than show up to work and go to meetings and make money. That the reality is there are real human beings sitting in those seats who have a life, what most of us would say outside of work, right? The reality is we have a life that encompasses work and also everything else that we do, our families, our hobbies, the things we're really passionate about. And I think that as leaders, we really need to recognize that culture helps to support the people. And the people are what's really important. It's the people that keep our businesses going.
Well said. Well said. When I first started working with corporate America, I didn't know anything about that. I grew up around cornfields and I didn't know anything about business. My dad was an electrician at the steel mill, and Gary. And so I didn't know anything about companies or business or anything like that. But when I got in the room, all I saw were a bunch of humans. And I was really good with working with humans and the human mind and shifting behavior. And so I thought, well, this will be all right, because I know what to do to help people. And that's really what businesses are. They're groups of people who are working for a common cause. And so I love how, we want to treat people like people and bring the humanity back into the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you. Okay. So one more question on that theme. So from your perspective, how much progress do you think that we've made over the last decade when it comes to how corporate America views women of color?
Good question. First, let me start with kind of some data. Really, because how corporate really views women of color really is in the stats. So if I think about the number of people of color, women of color in executive positions, managerial, executive, C-suite positions, I think the gains are minuscule, particularly in relation to the potential. So I was reading online, McKinsey conducts a study every year with leanin.org, where they look at women in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And what they found is that there's been modest improvement actually over the past, I think it's 4 or 5 years. And so what that means is if we think of women of color representing about 3% of C-suite leaders, stands to me, if you look at the population of people in our corporations, that there are more advances that we need to take advantage of, right? We have a long way to go. My personal perspective is that women of color are being hired. Advancement is slow, however, and that's where a lot of the frustration comes in. When I talk to other women leaders, the issues that we're talking about today are similar to the issues that we were talking about 10 years ago. Not being heard, not being recognized for our contributions, not getting full support from our managers, not being lifted up to higher levels of authority within the organization. Mm-hmm. Those issues haven't changed. But 2020 was a really interesting year. And for many of us and our corporations and the leaders, it really challenged our core beliefs about how we view people, particularly people of color, particularly African Americans. And so I think there are a lot more conversations and initiatives to have and to execute. But certainly if you look at the data and you look at the stats, and if you listen to what people are saying, there is a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. There is. And I agree with you that the whole point is we got to keep having this conversation, and we got to have diversity, inclusion, and, advancement, right? And the same opportunities, right? So that's why I brought it up, because we got to keep having this conversation. One way you build cultures is by having honest conversations, and sometimes they're uncomfortable, but those are the best ones to have.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I appreciate your answer. And yes, we do have a long way to go, but we're getting there. We're going to keep doing it. It's people like you and me who are going to transform this world, and business leaders who are conscious, who are mindful, who are caring, who rate higher on the empathy scale. Right. We're the ones that and entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to transform the world. I don't think politicians and governments are going to do it. It's got to be us. So, all right. Very good. All right. So we both received criticisms at times for working in corporate America. I remember when I first really started working a lot with companies, some of my friends would be like, oh, Tim's he went corporate now. He's going to be too good for us. And you've heard things, working in the oil refining industry, that, oh, you're a sellout, or you're a defender of capitalism. And so how do you respond to comments like that?
So my family would tell me to ignore people. I'm making a good living. I'm taking care of my family. Doing what I need to do. I'm a good human being. Yeah. And that's helpful to a certain extent. But really, this is a conversation about me and my own personal values and views. And also, perhaps if I deepen the conversation a little bit, there's room here for a discussion about a higher view, right? What I believe my purpose here is right now. And one of the things that I learned from my elders, I've had the opportunity to spend some time in some indigenous communities, Native American communities here in the US, and also a community that promotes West African spirituality in Brazil. And as a result of those relationships, what I've learned is that actions and activities that people do aren't always clear. When you look on the surface, it may look one way, but if you allow yourself to go a little bit deeper and look under the surface, you may realize that someone is actually sparking change or very necessary exactly where they are. So, Tim, you and I, we've had this conversation around, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And this belief that change comes from within is a personal principle that we talk about all the time. We talk about, looking in the mirror and you're the change that you seek. It's also true for it within the context of large organizations. There is a need for leaders to be in an organization and to change that organization from within, or at least to, for me, I show up in all my authenticity at work. I speak my truth. I don't leave anything at the door. And I think that's the difference, right? When people are talking to you about, oh, you went corporate, oh, this person is doing this, selling out is really about people selling out their values and not being who they are. Mm-hmm. I don't change who I am when I go into the office. I'll speak to you today, and the same way I'm speaking to you is the same way I'll speak to my coworkers, my leadership, and my team. And everyone knows that, they respect it. And the reality is that I'm having a good impact on people as a result.
That's a beautiful answer. I've talked about the stress that we have sometimes as leaders, where we try to wear two hats, the one we wear at work and the one we wear at home. Mm-hmm. And we need to have just one hat. So we're showing up more authentic and with more I can't say the word authenticity with more authenticity today, to make sure that we are. And I really liked how you said, it's about your values, right? And if you're going to create a change, you got to do it from the inside out. And so you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And whenever somebody calls somebody else names, that's just their own fears and insecurities. And we can't hide our own light for someone else to feel like they can shine brighter. It doesn't work that way, Right. So I'm glad that you kept shining. That's awesome. Okay. So you had said before that companies aren't doing anything wrong. It's usually specific people who make unwise decisions. So what do you think we can do to enroll more people into this mindfulness or conscious capitalism movement?
Yeah. So it really takes a mindset shift. Yes. Conscious capitalism believes that you can make money.
Yeah.
And you can also think about people, and you can think about the communities in which you do business. And you should be thinking about the stakeholders and also thinking about your higher purpose. Yeah. That's what conscious capitalism is. It's not an either or conversation. It is inclusive. It is, how do we do all of this and empower our people who work for our companies, and at the same time empower ourselves? And it really starts with a mindset shift of just recognizing that you really can have it all. You can. There are ways to do it. And it may involve stepping back and being reflective about the decisions we make, why we make those decisions, how we make those decisions. Are we challenging ourselves? Are we challenging the status quo and thinking about if we're making decisions in the same ways that we always have? Are we inviting other people to the conversation? I guarantee you there are people in our companies who have opinions about the decisions that are made, and with a small tweak, they have ideas about how we could make big leaps and bounds. But are we listening to those people? Are we inviting them to offer those opinions? Ultimately, one of the things we can do, people who are making decisions, is to ask ourselves, how are we doing good, right? At the end of the day, beginning of the day, how can I do good today? At the end of the day, how did I do good, right? When we're looking at those financial reports at the end of the quarter, let's also start asking ourselves, how did we do good this quarter? That's just as important as the financial results.
I love that. I love questions, the power of questions. And so those are great ones. Are we listening to our employees? Because you're right. Employees have amazing ideas for creativity or innovation. And if they're not feeling heard, then we miss those opportunities. Plus it increases engagement, right? People feel like if they're co-creating these experiences at work and they're a part of it, then it gives their work more meaning. So I love that. And then those questions that you asked are great. How can we do good? And then how did we do good? And we really measure that as part of the bottom line. Yes, we have profits, but we also, what about the people? What about the planet? What have we done good for each other, and how have we taken care of ourselves? Right. And so that's really good. So you wrote a wonderful book titled Leading Wise, and in it you draw wisdom from indigenous leaders and philosophies, like you just mentioned to us. So I'm excited. Tell us more about the book and what you learned from some of those experiences with the different leaders.
Yeah, so I was compelled to write a book, to write something, and to help leaders to figure out how to become more impactful leaders. And I was inspired by my own experiences with some of those traditional communities. I call them wisdom communities that I spoke of earlier. And as I started to bring some of the principles and lessons that I learned from watching the leaders in those communities together, I began to incorporate those philosophies not only into my personal life, which became richer, but also into my work life. So again, I was authentic. I didn't leave anything at the door. So ultimately, I thought I was going to write a how-to guide, right? But what came forward was actually more of an inspirational reflection book. One of the things that I learned about corporate leaders, myself included, is we don't often take enough time to just sit back and think about what we're actually doing. Things are so busy. There's always something to solve, something to do. And what I learned is that when I took the time to sit back and really think about my own philosophies about leading and my mindset that I was bringing to my own organization, I started to put that on paper, and it really evolved. We talk about things evolving from your soul. That's really how this book evolved. It wasn't the book that I set out to write, but it's the book that came forward. And I am glad and proud that it's here because a lot of us just don't have the time to just sit back and take a deeper look at our leadership. Right? There's a higher purpose for why we are where we are. And this book can help one really journey into the depths of ourselves to get some wisdom about what that is.
That is so needed. And you're right. We go so fast. We barely take time to slow down. I always tell people most of the leaders that I work with are type A, very driven, perfectionists, always wanting to help, always trying to take it to the next level. And here in Indianapolis, we have the Indy 500. And these race cars, these $1 million machines are built for speed, and they're built to zip around the track and win races. But if they don't take the pit stops, they don't finish the race. So actually stopping and pausing is just as important as zipping around the track. So your book is very important. It's essential for leaders. So I remember listening to Nelson Mandela talk about his father, and his father was a leader for his community. And he said that he would sit down with other community leaders and he'd watch his father, and his father never spoke until the very end. He said, that's what I learned. He said, my father learned to listen. He says he already knew his viewpoint. He wanted to hear what everybody else had to say. And then once he took it all in, he was able to form a more well-rounded educational viewpoint or response. And I thought that was so much wisdom. The best influencers are not the best speakers, but the best listeners. So did you pick up any particular wisdom from watching some of these leaders in action?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually one. In some of the circles that I've been in, everyone takes the talking stick, and while you have the stick, you can speak. And then the whole notion is that you pass it on to someone else, right? And there are a lot of lessons in that. One is that everyone's opinion is valuable, and also that there is a time to speak and there is a time to listen. So that's a really good lesson. I'm glad that you brought that one forth about Nelson Mandela. As I think about some of my elders, I think about the way that they give wisdom in such practical ways, not necessarily in the moment. Sometimes they may see chaos unfolding all around them. And I've seen this so many times where somebody's complaining about something and somebody else, and everybody gets into it. And the leader is just sitting back, acting as if they're not even really listening or have a care about it in the world. They're there, and then they go off and they do something, and they're just going about things, and they come back. And at some point during the day, they'll deliver one line of wisdom that shuts down all that chaos. And it really teaches me about the power of listening, but not reacting, but actually taking time to be patient and to go within, to get that inner guidance that's always there for us. If we just take the time to listen, if we just remove ourselves from that chaos. Another big lesson that I learned from these elders is that everyone has a role. Everyone has a purpose and a role, and it's valuable. And part of being here on the planet is about learning how to work together, right? Same is true in our companies, in our organizations, right? How many times do we see that people in the silos pointing fingers, right, outside the silos, right? Part of the vision and the task is to recognize that everyone has a role, it's important, and we need to learn how to work together.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. I like that. The power of the pause, where instead of jumping in, you're pausing, which is difficult for a lot of leaders because we're so used to problem solving. Well, you do this and you do this and you do this and right. And let's get it done. Right. And move on. And what you're suggesting is the opposite, where you take it all in, you reflect a little bit, and then you come back with a more powerful response. And then you don't have to deliver a whole speech. You can deliver a sentence or two, and people are like, oh, that's powerful.
Right. Yeah. Or a question, or a powerful question. That's right.
Yeah. Questions are so powerful, right? Where's the creative opportunity in this situation, right? What do you think so-and-so is trying to accomplish here? What do you think their motives are? And getting people to assume the best in one another instead of assuming the worst.
Exactly.
So, because most of the time we're not responding to the situation anyway. We're responding to our emotional programming from the past, and it's pushing buttons inside of us that are causing us to respond the way we always do. So yellers yell and criers cry, and people that get loud, and people get quiet. And, yeah, but I like that too. Everyone has a role. And a big part of that is discovering what your role is, and then how you can collaborate with others in their roles. I mean, that's how you create powerful teams, for sure. So you had mentioned, and I really like these two comments, you had mentioned watching how these leaders led, and that they recognize that community is essential, and that that leaders are really the stewards of that community. So what do you mean by that? Community is essential and leaders are stewards.
Yeah. So we are here all living together. Most of us can't get away from that, right? Unless we're someplace, right, secluded. We're here to be with people. And so there is a fundamental question and around people, right? Why are we all here, right? And I remember someone telling me it's great to go off in the cave and meditate or do whatever you're going to do. There's some enlightenment you can get there, but the real test, right, is when you actually have to relate and apply that wisdom and enlightenment in real life, practical situations. So relationships are fundamental to our growth and transformation as human beings. And doesn't matter what relationship, family relationships, when we get married, right? That's a whole other level. Relationships with our children, our teams, it's all there, I believe, as part of a journey to help us transform ourselves. So being the steward as a leader, I feel that I am a steward of people to help them have better relationships with other people. That's how I view my role as vice president of marketing, is really around how do we transform ourselves to get better ideas, to work better with someone else, to solve a challenge. That's really where it begins. My elders take that to another level, to even include like being a steward of the earth. And that gets into this idea of being a steward of communities, right? Communities take care of the earth. We take care of our neighborhoods. We take care of the people around us. You know, we talk about how it takes a village to raise a child, right? It takes a village. We could really just stop there. It takes a village for us to all contribute and be successful. And good leaders know how to inspire a community to action or to stillness, whatever is needed in the situation, so that we're able to all be successful.
Wow, that's really great. I love that. I always thought that the Dalai Lama always seems so peaceful and happy and, you know, spreading joy everywhere he goes. And I always thought, how would he feel if he was married with kids working in corporate America? Do that. I mean, meditating on a mountain, you know, is cool, or in a cave, you know, but be married with kids or working in a big company and then show up that way. But I guess we don't need the Dalai Lama to do that, because we have you doing that with your spiritual gifts that you're bringing. So that's awesome. So, all right. So you wrote this beautiful book because you wanted leaders to experience that purpose, that authenticity, that transformation in their daily lives, which is great. And you want leaders to lead in a way that creates real fulfillment for them. And so we talk about creating fulfillment through leadership and feeling more fulfilled at work. But if you're new to this, where do you even begin?
That's a great question. So if you're new, well, for me, everything begins within, right? A good place to start is really to stop and think about, I always ask people to ask themselves a couple of questions, right? What is your role in your organization? And how effective are you? And I would measure that. We tend to measure it in terms of revenues or margins or market share, right? Pounds out the door, these kinds of things. But I ask you to step back and think about your teams and think about how you've shown up for the people that you work with and the people that are on your teams. How have you showed up for them? And that is a good way to start, by just simply asking ourselves and begin to give ourselves permission to probe our lives in a way that many of us do outside of work. Bring that inside of work, right? Apply the things that you've learned when you're having your deepest conversations with, you know, your family or your friends or your advisors, and apply that inside of work. That is always a good place to start. And the answers to those questions will then lead one, hopefully you, all of us, to really think about, am I happy with this? And is there a way for me to do this differently? Is this the legacy? If I continue to do things the way I do them today, is this the legacy that I want to leave behind after I'm gone from my company?
Wow, that's really great. I love how you are asking these questions that really cause people to go within and think, how am I showing up for those that I work with? Instead of just measuring it by the numbers, but by the impact you have and the relationships that you have with those around you. That is so powerful. And it causes you to really have to take a look. And then I think that another piece of that is then getting feedback from those other people, because a lot of times we have a version of ourselves in our mind that doesn't always match the experience that others are having of us. Yeah. And so the value of having those 360s, you know, surveys and things like that, and getting outside feedback, because as they say, you can't see the label when you're in the bottle. So yeah, that's very powerful. I also love the idea of stop instead of start, right? Instead of going on to this next thing like it's another project, instead we want to pause, you know, and go within and ask a different set of questions that will lead to a new level of awareness. Because I really believe that people can only live up to the level of self-awareness that they have. And our job is to increase that self-awareness. Mm-hmm. So very good. So in your book, you write, discover the power of shifting your perspective through the wisdom of traditional cultures brought to life through poetic verse and practical application. Of course, we're talking about your book. So do you have a particular story or poetic verse or something that brings to life how business can be used as a force for good in the world?
Yeah, so I'll pull something from my book. At the end of the book, I offer affirmations for leaders to be used, however, to be written or to say, or however people feel comfortable using affirmations. And one of them is, may our leadership be offered in the spirit of service, that we may guide our communities and teams to shine their light and dance in their purpose. And that, for me, is what I think about when I think about business being used as a force for good. It is about, first and foremost, service. As leaders in our businesses, do we think about our business as serving the need of a community or communities? So that's first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we all have a purpose, and which means that communities are made up of people. So communities should have a purpose, and businesses is a community that has a particular goal and an objective of making money, serving a need. And again, those two can exist together. And as leaders, our calling, our task is really about how we guide our business to be in service, how we guide our employees and our teams to align with that vision. And also to really ask themselves, how can they be in service to each other? Like, I'm a Six Sigma Black Belt. And when I think about going in and improving process, for me, that's really about, how can I make this easier for someone else? Mm-hmm. How can I make this easier for our customers, for me, so that when we are going through our day every day, it's a little bit less stressful. It is more efficient. And that's really important. Yeah.
Wow. Excellent questions. Just one after another. I'm getting a hand cramp. I keep writing. I can't write fast enough, Eboni. So really great. All right. So that was very good. At W.R. Grace & Company, they help companies make clean fuels. We're helping other companies to do better as well. We take data and information and learn how to apply it so that you can be profitable without hurting the planet or people. So what are some ways that you see companies doing that, becoming more profitable without hurting our communities and our planet?
Yeah, and in many conversations that I've had with leaders from various businesses, and particularly with conversations around conscious capitalism, mm-hmm. It's really inspiring to see how large corporations are getting involved with actually this concept of doing good and not hurting people, not hurting the planet. It's easy to look at. I think about some small businesses who are solving problems in their neighborhoods or in their regions. Things like sourcing. I think one of the ones I hear a lot about is like sourcing coffee from a small community that otherwise would not have the reach that they do. A place in Ethiopia, and being part of a network where they can sell their coffee beans, in the US, right? That's an example of helping each other. There are larger examples. And what I think is really interesting is how large companies are expanding the discussion about doing good Some examples that I really like are how large companies are hiring some of those small or overlooked businesses, right? So they're using their power, their financial wealth as corporations to lift up others, to institute programs to make sure that businesses run by people of color are not only considered, but are truly valued in the supply chain for an organization. Companies are thinking about sustainability. They're thinking about not just now, but thinking about the future, 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now. And also expanding the discussion to talk about people and the community in a real, genuine way. These conversations are happening at a lot of companies. Sometimes it may be difficult if you're on the outside to really see that. But one of the things I always say is it's a journey. And you will hear a lot of CEOs say just that. We're having these conversations. We know where we are. We have that baseline, and it's a journey for us to get to where we want to be in order to really achieve our vision.
Yeah, we're all on that journey. This is where we are. This is where we want to get to. And every day we get up and we try to make some progress. And, you know, when you know what you're doing and you're showing up purposeful and intentional, then that creates a fulfilling life. And every day you get up and you're working towards that mission. You know, how can we be better today than we were yesterday? So very good. Very good. So you've talked about this, but I want to use the right words. So you started by improving your company with chemicals, and now you're doing it again with spiritual leadership. Those are the words that I was talking to. So can you explain to us what spiritual leadership is and how you're using it to impact others on a daily basis?
Yeah, so for me, spiritual leadership is about transforming oneself. So as a spiritual leader, a wisdom leader, I am conscious of recognizing that I'm in a position of power, you know, it's power or quote unquote power. And in that position, I have an amazing responsibility for people first and foremost, responsibility to myself, but also the people who are on my teams and the people that I interact with. I'm responsible for them. I'm responsible for giving them opportunities in the workplace, for recognizing that they have a potential for greatness, recognizing that they have a sacred purpose, each and every person. And so ultimately what that means is I am inspiring their intellectual abilities, but also inspiring their hearts. And to me, that is what there are different definitions, but for me, that's what spiritual leadership is, with the ultimate goal of being transformation. When someone is on my team, when they go home at the end of the day, or when they move on to another company or whatever, when we're just having those reflective moments, I want them to say, wow, Eboni challenged me to be greater than I thought I could be, and maybe to expand who I am as a person. And as a result, I actually see that I'm a better human.
Wow. So everyone that's listening, I want you to rewind 20 seconds and listen to that again, because that was pure wisdom pouring out of you, Eboni. That was powerful. I love that. You know, it's real leaders help others have an expanded vision of themselves.
That's right.
You know, leaders grow people. You know, as they say, businesses don't grow, people do.
That's right.
And so that was very good. Yeah. So you told me the other day, and you mentioned this before, that you could sit on a mountain and be happy, right? But that's not what you were called to do. That's not how you make your difference in the world. And you certainly have been making that difference. So one way that you do that, which I personally love, is by providing mindfulness support for leaders. So what is mindfulness support?
Yeah, mindfulness support is teaching people, specifically for me, corporate leaders, corporate women leaders, to be mindful and reflective so they can be more powerful and impactful. So what does that mean? It really means to develop a sense of self-awareness in every moment. So as leaders, our effectiveness is really based on our ability to show up and to recognize how we are feeling. You mentioned earlier about reacting based on our past experiences. And self-awareness says, recognize that that experience is there, recognize what I'm feeling, and then recognize that I can make a choice. I can make a choice to engage in a particular way. I can make a choice to retreat. It's all about making mindful choices, about being aware of what we're doing and being very self-guided and self-directed. And this can include, meditation. I actually like to walk because walking is really is a reflective activity for me, helps me to recognize what's happening in my mind, in my body, in my heart, in my gut, and I can be sitting in meetings and I can feel, okay, something's happening right in my gut. I'm not liking this conversation. And I can actually be very much aware of that and then ask myself a series of questions so that I'm making the right decision to move forward. So that I'm making decisions out of a place of wisdom, not out of a place of discomfort. I see work as a journey. And just like any journey that you're on, it's always helpful when we are aware of what's happening every step along the way of the journey. It's all important. And I believe it's all there for a reason. We get data, and in terms of our experiences, in terms of our responses to people, in terms of what we feel, and we need to use the data to make good decisions.
So good. Again, I love that. Walking creates that energy that allows us to be more aware at times and more reflective, as you said, and really to tune in to your wisdom, your instinctual feelings, your connection to God, whatever, or to your surroundings, whatever you believe in, and to trust that so that you're making decisions based on wisdom instead of based on reactions from the past. I think the best leaders will say, I got a gut instinct about this. And when you trust yourself and you follow that, you're usually right. When you don't, people always say, oh, I knew better. Why didn't I listen to myself? Well, that's old programming. The reason you didn't trust yourself. And so, yeah, that's very, very good. So we also both believe that self-care is necessary and an essential part of leadership development. So what's one way that leaders can begin to improve their self-care?
I'm going to give you more than one. I have to. Sorry.
No,
I would say, and we talked about this already, stop moving, find time for stillness, and take time for reflection. So that one I've already said. Yes. The other one I would say is spend time in nature. Because there's something very powerful about being still and being outside and just observing the trees or the animals or the birds or the water. There is a real wisdom that takes place just by the act of just being out in nature. It's good to get a different perspective. And many of us spend more time in our offices, home office or corporate office. These days, it's good to get outside, get in the fresh air, sit on the ground, and just allow yourself to simply be, and then be open for the experience that comes next.
Beautiful. Yeah, if I'm not at home and I'm want to have that connection and I'm in a big city, then I'll go to a park. Sometimes I've had to go to a zoo because it was the only thing that had trees, the only place that had trees and looked, had that environment. And so, yeah, that's really great. Getting outside, breathing that fresh, clean air, changing your environment if you're in the same environment, or just changing your body posture. If you sit all day long in front of a computer, you got to get the blood back to your brain. Right. So, yeah, so those are very good. Another way of doing that is by going to your website And you have these short meditation videos that I really enjoy, 1 minute. And so you take these 1 minute spiritual breaks just to get quiet and to feel more mindful. So, and then of course, your amazing book, Leading Why. So Eboni, tell us, where can people learn more about you and find your book and these videos?
So my book is available on Amazon. For those of you that prefer indie bound, also carries my book as well. And follow me on social media. You can go to my website, eboniadamsmonk.com. It's the same on social media, Eboni Adams Monk. That's Eboni with an I. And I'm always there, either with videos or some inspirational messages, or maybe just a glimpse into my world.
Yeah, more glimpses into your world and how you're applying that at work would be really great, because people are going to have more questions. And, well, how are you doing this when you're at work? And how are you doing that when you're at work? And so, taking people inside, allowing them to peek behind the curtain, is really powerful and makes people excited to see that this is possible. So Eboni, this was just absolutely awesome. You were mesmerizing. There were so many great insights and tips. I've got notes all over. My paper is just marked full of notes and just writing down all the wisdom. So thank you so much for all that you do and all that you're bringing to make this world a brighter place, and for being just a wonderful guest on the show today.
Thank you. I accept that. Thank you. And thank you to you as well.
Hey, it's Tim. You ever wonder why so many talented, hardworking entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with inconsistent self-belief, or high stress, or procrastination, or self-sabotage? Well, the answer may surprise you, and the solution is already inside of you. I've been searching for the answers to this for decades, and I found them, and I put it into a new program called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind, Mental Secrets for Accelerating Success. And because you're a listener, I want to give you a free VIP copy. Head over to powermindsetprogram.com. That's powermindsetprogram.com and grab your copy today.